Time for this week's edition of Todd's Odds with our sports betting analyst Todd Fuhrman from Las Vegas, Nevada. Currently 5 teams at 3-0, 5 NFL teams, of course. We're talking about the NFL. No surprise about the Chiefs and Bills, I suppose. But then there's the Vikings, the Steelers, and the Seahawks. I don't know if anyone had these teams going 3-0 to start the season. I'm going to ask you about each of these 3 teams, Todd, and ask if you would make a bet for them to make the postseason. We're going to start with Minnesota, currently minus 194 on the yes side, plus 156 on the no side. Do you like the Vikings in the postseason, Todd Fuhrman?
Well, Jay, when you mentioned teams at 3-0, I didn't think we were going to lead with teams that are dominating the NHL preseason. We can wait until the regular season starts in earnest in a couple of weeks. But the Minnesota Vikings, no doubt, have been one of the biggest storylines. You look at Sam Darnold kind of resurrecting his career at the elbow of Kevin O'Connell. Brian Flores' defense playing with their hair on fire, and there's nothing to scoff at. Upset wins against the 49ers on the resume, the Houston Texans. But I'm going to say no for the Vikings, and that's mainly because of the schedule they're going to face over the next 3 weeks, where I think this price can come down. They're underdogs this weekend against Green Bay. We'll see if Jordan Love makes his return to action. Then they play the Jets on the road in London. They'll have a chance to hit the reset button. And who do they play coming out of the bye? The Detroit Lions. So I'm willing to take the price, not because I don't believe in the Vikings, but I'm not willing to lay minus 194 that this undefeated start continues over the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Maybe the most surprising team is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and just another testament to Mike Tomlin's incredible job coaching this franchise over the years. Justin Fields looks great. Do you like this? Do you like the black and gold in the postseason, Todd?
I mean, credit to the Steelers, Jay. They broke through and scored 20 points for the first time all season with a win against the Chargers last weekend. Everyone was selling this team coming into the year. All the talk was about the Bengals and the Ravens in the division, the Browns being a sleeper. But Pittsburgh continuing to do what the Steelers do, running the football, leaning into a defense that flies under the radar. I'm buying the Steelers as a legitimate playoff team because I think when you look at the AFC from top to bottom, there are teams that haven't performed at the level that I expected. And all of the talk about the Steelers was this gauntlet of a schedule that they were going to encounter over the final 8 weeks. Well, the Bengals and Browns, if they're scuffling, those games don't look nearly as daunting. Mike Tomlin does more with less and typically loves to get teams into playoffs that can't score. I'm going to bet that the Steelers do find a way to make the postseason. I'm willing to lay this short price.
Michael McDonald is the new head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, and only a fool would believe, Todd, only a fool would believe that Seattle would start the season 3-0. And yet here we are. Michael McDonald has the Seahawks at 3-0, but will he get them into the postseason?
Well, when you look at Seattle's 3-0 start, this was a team that I actually believed in coming into the year, but I think their resume to date leaves a lot to be desired. You look at the opponents they faced. It was Bo Nix in his first ever NFL start in a hostile environment. They flew across the country to play a Patriots team that they squeaked by in overtime that may win 3 games if things break the right way for them. And then, of course, took care of the 37th string quarterback that the Dolphins trotted out there late in that game. So while I do believe in Seattle's playoff prospects, I think they could lose on Monday night potentially to Detroit and get a better number. But I'm willing to lay $1.20 thereabouts on the Seahawks. I think they are one of the 7 best teams in the NFC. And Jay, wouldn't be shocked if they find a way to win that division if San Francisco continues to deal with the rash of injuries.
Todd, your hometown team, the Las Vegas Raiders, dealing with some controversy right now. And actually, FanDuel has odds on which team's star receiver Davante Adams will play on by the NFL trade deadline November the 5th. His current team, the Raiders, are the favorite. But next up, it's the Jets with his old Packers teammate Aaron Rodgers. Antonio Pierce, Vegas head coach, called out a few players for making business decisions after Sunday's loss. Do you believe that there is a good chance that Adams will be moved, Todd?
I do think there's a good chance that he'll be moved. And contrary to popular belief, he will not be taking over a nighttime act in terms of singing and dancing on the Las Vegas Strip. But you look at some of those numbers, and I think the prices are relatively short. We know that the Jets are going to garner all the buzz so they can reunite Davante Adams with Aaron Rodgers. But honestly, Jay, there always seems to be a suitor to come from off the pace. I think taking the field as a little bit of a flyer at 19-1 makes some sense. If there's a key injury to someone in the wide receiver room for one of the contenders, they may be willing to offer up some draft capital that the silver and black can't say no to. So I'll take the field at 19-1 that Davante gets moved to a team not listed.
And finally, if you haven't been watching this segment for the last few weeks, we do a fun thing with Todd. We don't ask him for his Super Bowl picks. We ask him to eliminate teams from Super Bowl contention. And these are the 5 teams that Todd has already eliminated from being in Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. Todd, is there another team you'd like to add to this list?
There is indeed, and we added the Indianapolis Colts last week as members of the AFC South, and I'm going to add the Jacksonville Jaguars to that list as well. I know Monday night's performance against the Buffalo Bills was about as bad as it gets, but I think this team is fundamentally broken at the quarterback position. The heat on Doug Peterson continues to get ratcheted up, and this defensive backfield is a little bit problematic for me. So I'm sorry for our friends down there in northern Florida, but the Jacksonville Jaguars will not be making an appearance playing for the Lombardi Trophy in New Orleans in the middle of February.
Todd, you are sensational. And when you make business decisions, it makes people money. And that's the difference between you and the guys playing for Antonio Pierce. We will chat with you next week. Thanks, my friend.